Hello everybody. So in the last lesson we looked at how to set up your display for debugging. So I want to quickly look at some VEX to help you how to debug certain things that you're doing when you're coding. And this uses something called the printf function, which I will briefly show you now how to use. So what I want to do, in fact, first of all, I think I will move this because, let me see if I can get that. Nope. All right, there we go. Because behind here I have my Houdini terminal, and this is where all the information will go that we put into the debugging. So let's do that quickly. So geo, let's create the geometry. You already know how to do a lot of this from previous lessons. Okay, let me make a grid, I think, and let's make this 5 by 5. I'm gonna use an add node because I just want the points, I think. There we go. All right, and let's get rid of that. All right. And how many of these did we? Oh, I went the size wrong. We can have 5 and 5 the size, and then I'm going to also knock this down to 5 and 5, make it more manageable. So now we've got 25 points there. In fact, it tells me there. Right, brilliant. So now I'm going to open a Wrangle. Okay, and we'll do a quick bit of code. Let me just, oh, in fact, I only need one piece of code, I think, here. Let's have float r, so I'm using this variable, and I'm going to use the ramp function. Okay, let me quickly show you the ramp function in case you don't know. I might have made a lesson about this already, I don't remember. Sorry, not ramp, rand, silly me. So this is just to use to randomize a number. And it'll randomize the number as a float between 0 and 1. That's it, right? So I need to put in my seed here, and I'm going to use the seed ptnum because that number is different for every point, so it will generate a different number, a different random number. Okay, if it was the same like point number, it would always generate the same random number as well. That's not what you want. So let's use this ptnum. And okay, now that has now stored for each point, it has stored a random number. But of course I can't see what those random numbers are. So a way to do that is by using the printf function. So let's start by doing that. So printf, and here it gives me a little bit of information, and I'll explain how this works. But this part is quite important here about which different format characters are available. I'll show you how I do it. It's really straightforward, but there are a number of options here, and you can also find those in the notes on the Side Effects website. But anyway, so print, first part I need is a string. I need to know what this is going to say. So for example, I'm going to say my random number. Okay, and let's close that up, and okay, we now see that my random number popped up on here, right? Perfect. That's exactly what it says here. So it's a string. Let's change it to my perfect number for you, and this should change again. Let's do that, and we can see there it's added it, but strange, it's actually not put it on a new line. And there's a reason for that, and that's because I have to tell it when to make a new line. So to format this correctly, I will put this backslash, and then I put the n in lowercase, and then when I put that on, oh, let me do it again. So let me just quickly change something there. All right, now I can see it's on that new line. All right, so this always makes a new line. okay? But this doesn't help me. I wanted to know the random values from here. So let's have, let's first of all start with the point number, I think. So we'll start off by saying point number, okay? And I will say equals, but then I need to know what the variable is. So the variable that I'm going to put in here will be either a float, a string, or an integer, right? And in this particular case, I want to use an integer because it's a ptnum. So the way to print an integer is by using this percentage sign and then a d. Why the d? Maybe somebody can tell me down below. I'm not really sure. In fact, let me make this a bit bigger so you can see it. There you go. The percentage d, I don't know why it uses d. Maybe it stands for digit or something. I don't know. But for integers anyway, I use this percentage d. For a float, I use percentage g, and for a string, I use percentage s. Okay, now there are quite a few different options that I can use, but they're basically the three that I use, okay? And I rarely use the string, so I really just have to remember this percentage d for an integer and percentage g for a float, okay? So in this particular case, this one is an integer, so let's use the d, all right? So that tells me point number equals, then I'm expecting an integer, but the integer comes from which variable? I've closed off my string there, so now I can put my variable name. In this case, it's at ptnum. All right, and let's see what we get. Okay, now we get a number with all the points, but here we've got this problem again where they're just going in straight lines, and I want this to, of course, make a new line after each one. So let me do this, / remember n, and there we go. Now it looks much better formatting, right? It's got this point number, and it's all laid out just as I would expect. What I like to do to make my formatting slightly more readable is I always like to put this printf, and then I'm just going to make a new line. And the reason is that when I create more and more information, so let's say for example let's stop that. Oh, there you go, it's already given me it. You can see it's hard to read where does this information start and end. So I want to create like an extra line break in there so that it's easy to identify the next part. So I'm going to do that by uncommenting this, and then now you can see I've got this line break, so it's easy for me to read that. Pure formatting, that's all it is. You don't have to do that, but I like to do that. Okay, so I've got my point number, but I also want to know what is my random number. So I'm going to put some more information in here. Let's move this, I think. Don't really need to see that, but I do need to see this part. So let me think now. So I'm just going to put this line in the way, and then I'm going to say random equals. Now remember, the random number, which in this case is r as a variable, is a float. Do you remember what we use for a float? That's right, you got it. We use this %g. Okay. Now if I put this in now, let's see what we get. Okay, so we get some kind of weird stuff here. In fact, I want to put this at the end of here. Let's do that. There we go, that's going to be better. Right, so now I've got the point number and I've got random, and it just says this G here instead of my random number, and the reason is because I haven't put the variable here. So let's do that, and that is R. Now, okay, let's take a quick look at this first, see if it's working. So point number, and here's all my random numbers. All right, it's kind of cool. Now, you might notice what's happening here. I've got my first variable here, the integer. I've got my second variable here. I then close off all of this string, and then I put my variables in that specific order. Okay, so I know that the first one, point number, is the point number here, and I know that the random is my r from here, my variable r, and I put that there. It's important you get the order correct. If you don't, you won't get the correct result. And so this now allows me to see what those random numbers are. I could also just add this in the geometry spreadsheet and use that as an attribute. This is of course not attribute here, ptnum is, but I've not got it in the geometry spreadsheet. So what is the benefit of this one? Well, a couple of benefits. First one is I don't get my whole geometry spreadsheet clogged up with a bunch of temporary attributes which I don't really need. They're just there for debugging. And secondly, this printf function will also allow me to see what's happening during a process. So let me explain that. This is the end result, right? But let's say I've got something where it's looping and calculating, and all I will get in my attribute, my geometry spreadsheet is the final result. But this way I can print out each step of the way so I can find where something might be going wrong. Okay, which is really all debugging is. It's trying to find out what's happening under the hood, and are there any errors that I can correct in there. It's kind of great fun. I kind of like debugging. But anyway, putting that aside, that's how your printf function works. So I hope that was useful. Any questions, just let me know, and you guys, of course, as always, have a great day.